Om Namo Narayana and welcome back. Today we are starting the Yoga Sutras. Very excited to read this. Before I do, let me just do a little introduction if you are new to this channel. First of all, apologies for my funky kitchen. It's 5:30 in the morning as I record this, and this was really the only spot where I could get my camera, my light, and my computer. The rest of the house is just too dark this morning. But this is not like a high glamorous channel. It's just me reading the scriptures and then afterwards saying just a few off-the-cuff words about them. I come at these for the very first time. It's literally like a student at the feet of the guru, and the guru says, "Okay, student, today we are going to read the Yoga Sutras. Do you know what that is?" And the student's like, "No, I've never heard of it." I think today we have a tendency to often dive into these things, but we want to study them first, and we want to read about them first, and we want to Wikipedia them or know all about them. But what happens is we often get satiated, and then we don't actually read them. And I think that's a problem. I think we should read them. I really think we've created this society of research and wanting to know stuff, and you should research stuff and all, but yet traditionally you wouldn't. You would just sit at the feet of the guru and you would take stuff in. Now, I'm not a guru. I'm just like you. I love Krishna, and I just want to read the Word of God. This is the Word of God. And to not read it is it's like if your spouse wrote a novel. Would you not want to read that novel? It's your spouse. It's the one who you love, who you maybe raise your family with. To say, "No, I don't need to read anything you do." What? Who would be like that? Or if your kid plays sports or is in a theater production, as a parent, you're obligated to go, right? But yet, we don't read the Word of God. So I felt my spirituality was in a place where I had to do this. I felt like I couldn't go on not knowing these words, and I felt like this is what I was being called to do next. So I decided to just sit here, whether in books or on the computer, and to read, but to do it with you. So for a couple reasons, and then I'll wrap this introduction up. First of all, this keeps me in the habit of reading, because this can be really hard to do, and the commitment is a lot, and these texts are a lot, and so reading them here with you kind of forces me to do it, honestly. Second thing is, a lot of you, I know, have not read the text. Maybe you do not have time. Maybe you can find an English translation. Maybe you don't like to read. Whatever. So, to do it with you, maybe then you can listen to this and you can get the text. And thus, a couple of us get to go through these texts together. The last reason I'm doing this is because I consider, being that these are the words of God, and these are the teachers blessed by God who have brought these words to us, this is a form of puja for me. This is a way of offering something to God, opening myself to God, learning about God more, and so this is like honoring God by doing this. And that's really the big thing at the end of the day. Many times I've read stuff I have no idea what I'm reading. I'm just totally confused, but it's just an offering to God. And I started this channel with lots of other books, and I've done lots of readings, and it has been such a worthwhile endeavor. So please join me on this journey as I read through all these scriptures that I find. My eventual goal, and maybe by the time you see this video I would have achieved that, is to read the Rig Veda, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana. Anyways, today though, we're delving into the Yoga Sutras. So this is part 1. Meditative Absorption. Now, the Exposition of Yoga. Yoga is the restraint of mental activities. Then awareness abides in its essential form. At other times, awareness takes on the form of the mental activities. There are 5 types of mental activities, and they are neither detrimental or conducive to the practice of yoga. They are correct knowledge, misconception, imagination, sleep, and memory. Correct knowledge is based on perception, inference, and testimony. Misconception is false knowledge and not based on the actual appearance of something. Imagination is following verbal knowledge that is devoid of an actual object. Sleep is the mental activity based on the absence of other mental content. Memory is the retention of the experienced objects. The restraint of these mental activities is achieved through practice and dispassion. Practice is the exertion to achieve steadiness in the state of restraint. But this practice becomes firmly grounded only after it has been cultivated uninterruptedly and with devotion for a long time. Dispassion is the knowledge of mastery of one who is without thirst for objects that are seen or heard about. The supreme state of dispassion is the non-thirsting for the gunas which arises from the perception of the Purusha. Samadhi, that is accompanied by Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda, or Asmita, is Samprajñata. The other, Asamprajñata Samadhi, follows the former upon the practice of the notion of cessation and has only samskaras as residuum. The Samprajñata Samadhi of those who have merged into Prakriti and of those who are bodiless is due to the notion of becoming. The Asamprajñata Samadhi of the others is preceded by faith, energy, mindfulness, Samprajñata Samadhi, and mystical insight. Asamprajñata Samadhi is near to those who are intensely committed to their practice of yoga. Even among these, there is further differentiation of intense commitment into degrees of modest, medium, and extreme. Or, Ajasamprajñata Samadhi is near through devotion to Ishvara. Ishvara is a special Purusha because he is unaffected by the kleshas, karma, and its fruition, and by stored samskaras. In him, the seed of omniscience is unsurpassed. We're going to pause there. It's verse 25. So I want to say, I meet a lot of people who do that do yoga, but they're not Hindu. And personally, if you do yoga and you don't believe in Hinduism, I feel like you are literally missing the part of the equation. It's talking about a god right here, Ishvara. If you don't believe in that god, you're missing just a little bit of the equation. Okay, now, that being said, you don't have to necessarily believe what's exactly here. And that's fine. If you want to do yoga, but you're not interested in Hinduism, you don't want to be a Hindu, that is totally fine. But I will say, you should learn about Hinduism. I see no excuse why not to learn about the roots of this practice, to learn about the belief system of the practice, to learn what it means, what it's about, the context of it. I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that. For example, let's say you're into prayer. You really like this thing, prayer. You believe in a God. It's not really the God of any Bible, but, you do believe there's something there. And you want to learn how to pray better. So you're going to read Thomas Merton, or St. John of the Cross, or St. Teresa of Avila. But if you just dive into a book on St. John of the Cross, and I've done this, and you don't know who he is, and you don't know his context, and you don't know his belief system, it's going to be a good book, but it's also going to be a little distant because you're not really going to get it. This was my problem because I grew up and I didn't want to be Christian, and I wasn't really Christian, but I was interested in a lot of the Christian mystics, so I was reading about them, but I didn't know their belief systems and until after the fact, and I realized that I'd been missing something. So if you do yoga, I would highly recommend you learn about Hinduism. It's only going to enrich you. It's going to give you a bigger view of the world. It's not going to hurt you or damage you or anyway. Don't be afraid of it. It's not going to teach you weird satanic stuff. Not in the least. There is no Satan in Hinduism, actually. It may actually make your belief system, whatever that is, a little bit stronger. Also, if you notice, I read some Sanskrit in this. My Sanskrit pronunciation is comes and goes. I have a real issue with translation. Some words, I think we should just not be translating them. We need to learn the Sanskrit because the Sanskrit actually has a meaning, and if we put it into English, the meaning is just, it's just going to be lost completely, and we're going to have a completely different meaning, and that is absolutely going to change how we view things. For example, there was an Upanishad I was reading recently. Was it an Upanishad? God, I don't remember now. No, it was a hymn to Kali. And I got to a line and said something, something, something is work. And in the parentheses, it said karma. So the line would have been something, something is karma, but they gave you this nice English version. The problem is, if you know what karma is, it doesn't mean work. And if you think of the word work, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Your day job, you're making money, you're 9 to 5. Oh, I gotta get up at early in the morning, put my uniform on. That's work. But that's not really karma. So if we start talking about work, work, work as a substitute for the Sanskrit word, we're going to get a completely different feeling of what karma is all about. And maybe today we can work that out, but in the future it won't be so good. There's actually a really famous example. The word ahimsa you probably hear a lot if you are into Hinduism. Ahimsa tends to mean non-violence, or it's interpreted that way. That's actually a mistranslation. It does not mean non-violence. It means lessening the violence. It means if you have a situation where you may have to be violent, is there an option to not be violent? It never in 5,000 years had the definition of non-violence until Gandhi. He wrote his version of the Bhagavad Gita, or I say he translated his version, but his translations were not correct. He was not a Sanskrit scholar. He was not a Hindu scholar. Yes, he's a great leader, but he wanted a book that could endorse his nonviolent movement, and so he went to the Bhagavad Gita and he literally mistranslated it, maybe quite deliberately so. And in India, many people saw this and went, yeah, you've literally gone a bit too far to this. You can't do this. You can't mistranslate the ancient texts to show that they say what you want them to say. But in America, we like Gandhi. Gandhi's a great guy. He's kind of hard to hate if you don't know so much about him. And even if you do, you still honor him. And hey, in America, hey, if the guy translates Bhagavad Gita, well, he must know what he's doing, right? Boom. Suddenly, ahimsa means nonviolence. But if you go into the Bhagavad Gita, if you go into the Srimad Bhagavatam, if you go into the Ramayana, Mahabharata, pretty much any ancient text, you're going to see that word, and it doesn't mean nonviolence. And there's nothing in these stories that reflect a Hindu idea of nonviolence. It's not there. You will see stories of violence, of promoting violence. Krishna promotes violence. You will see stories of people lessening the violence, but you won't see this nonviolent ahimsa thing. In Buddhism, yes, you'll see it there. And that's where a lot of people then start mixing up different stuff and they put stuff together. And it's a shame because what it's doing is it's actually teaching this wrong view of Hinduism. It's trying to say Hinduism is this nonviolent thing, and yes, there is a nonviolent aspect to it, but it's not as clear-cut as you think due to a translation. Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita is told to fight. It's told it's his duty. How is that nonviolence? If truly he was following ahimsa, modern definition, he wouldn't fight. Doesn't work in the old text. This is a mistranslation issue. That's how bad mistranslation can be, that, oh God, what are we, a century later? That becomes the norm. And you see this in all the religions, they all have this. So I leave the Sanskrit in. That's the point of this long story, but I want to make this point very strong. When you're translating stuff, you see this Sanskrit, Google it and find out what samadhi means. Find out what whatever means, and just include that in your vocabulary. So this has been a long video. I like to keep these kind of around 20 minutes. So I'm actually going to stop here. And maybe in the next video I'll comment on a few things we've read so far as we pick up with verse 26. I just say some stuff, it's all off the cuff, as you can see, this is not scripted, this is not a history channel. I'm not a guru, I'm not a teacher. If you find anything of value here, well, that feels nice. I say things, though, to share my experience, but also to make you think and want to comment and bring up a conversation. I might be wrong, I might be right, I might be off my rocker, but it's to get some thought here. And again, this isn't an audio book, so I'm not sitting here intoning this and trying to make it perfect. So if you're new, welcome. If you're back, sorry for a longer video. I thought it was time to just touch base on things. And in the next video, we will start with verse 26 of the Yoga Sutras. So, as always, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.